Hi everyone, so in our last video we looked at the taxonomic levels of human beings. In this one, in 11b, we're going to be looking at trends in hominin evolution and what sort of things have evolved over time to make us unique. So we'll do this in class together, but these are a couple of questions that I want you to think about because all of the things we've been learning about in chapter 9 and chapter 10 are all linked. So all the things we learned about natural selection and selection pressures, all of those things have been acting on humans over time, and we have evolved the way we are because of them. So if we think about the human hand, for instance, can we think of some selection pressures that would be acting on us that would cause us to need to develop a hand that looks like this? So for instance, food that was growing on trees in our environment. Maybe that was the only food source available. So the structure of our hand being able to grab that fruit off that tree was a selective advantage that was being selected for. Explain why manipulating objects is an evolutionary advantage. So obviously if we can grab that fruit off that tree, we can eat, we're more likely to survive, and we are also more likely to pass on our genes to offspring, and therefore those advantageous alleles are going to be passed down and we will eventually evolve. So these are just things to think about. Always try and link what we've been learning back to chapter 9, chapter 10, because none of it's in isolation. So like we went through in our last video, we are hominins. So our genus is hominin, which is from the tribe hominini, and we are the last remaining members of this tribe. So we are Homo sapiens, but this tribe also included a couple of extinct species as well. So Homo neanderthalis, Homo erectus, Australopithecus, these are all early relatives of humans, and we're going to go through we're going to have a look at those a little bit later on, but it's good to note that all of these species were also alive while early Homo sapiens were alive as well. So we were all, interbreeding, interacting with each other, competing. So it wasn't just us evolving in isolation. So the main thing that separates Homo sapiens from other animals is our brain size. So hominin brains have increased over time, resulting in evolution of higher cognitive processes such as planning and speech. So whatever selection pressures were around, obviously a larger brain size was selected for, and this has allowed us to perform pretty high functioning skills. We know this due to fossils of skulls, not brains. Okay, so remember, fossilization normally happens on hard structures. Brain would decay too quickly for fossilization to occur. So we only have evidence from skull fossils of our changes in brain size over time. So we currently don't know whether brain growth happened gradually or if it was rapid growth in response to environmental selection pressures. So we don't know if it was just gradual mutations over time, or if there was something specific that was pressuring us to select for a larger brain. The jury's still out on that one. But an accepted driver is that the improved diet of hominins over time, inclusion of fruits, animals, etc., and the use of fire allowed for better brain growth. Because we were, eating more sustainable, nutritious foods, we were able to grow our brains. An increase in brain size means that we have increased complexity of our brain as well, specifically our cerebrum. So our cerebrum, if you have ever looked at a human brain, it has a bunch of folds on it, which increases the surface area. And this means that we have more neurons and therefore higher cognitive ability. This has allowed for cultural evolution as well. So humans have not only evolved physically, as we know, we've also had a massive cultural evolution, which not many other species have gone through. However, larger brains require more energy to run. So the expensive brain hypothesis weighs up the advantages and disadvantages of having a large brain. So we obviously must have decided at some point, well, not us, something must have decided along our evolutionary pathway that a bigger brain had more benefits than cons, but it still definitely has cons. So of course the positive is lower predation, so we're less likely to get eaten. Group care, shared mothering, cooking, stable food production, cultural evolution, all these things have resulted from having a large brain. But there's also some trade-offs as well. Higher energy needs, so bigger brain requires more food, more hunting. Complex childbirth is a big one. So our pelvises haven't evolved at the same rate that our brains have, which has made childbirth really complex and more likely to die from childbirth, and our larger diet as well. So our brains is a major marker in how we have evolved over time. And then, of course, our skull development as well. So if our brain is changing size, that obviously means that our skull had to change as well. So the selection pressure in this scenario was actually our change in brain size, because if our brain couldn't fit in our skull, obviously that's not going to work. So our skull has also evolved with our brain size. So that you can see a couple of differences between our earlier ancestors on the left and then ours on the right. So you can see that we have, for instance, a lessening brow ridge. So the brow ridge of our early ancestors was quite prominent, whereas we have quite a small one. You can see our faces are a lot flatter. We have a less protruding chin. We have more of a circular dome skull, and we also have smaller teeth as well. So all of these changes have been a result of other selection pressures that have been acting on us to evolve the way that we have. We've also experienced changes in limb structure. So like we were talking about in our taxonomic levels, we've got, so what separates us from the family is our ability for bipedalism. So bipedalism was obviously brought about by, again, a selection pressure and natural selection. So it was deemed, more suitable to be able to walk upright, to collect food, things like that. So that is how we have evolved away from the arboreal greater apes. So what's happened to support this bipedalism is we have developed shorter arms because we no longer need them to move through the trees. And we've also freed our arms and fingers for other tasks like building tools, preparing foods. So you can see that our arms are a lot shorter than the rest of the animals in our family. We also developed longer legs because walking upright takes a lot more energy, and therefore we wanted to be more energy efficient. So having longer legs reduces the number of muscles we need to walk. We also have more arched feet and big toes for bipedalism as well. And last but not least, our pelvis became shorter and more bowl-shaped. So you can see that the width of our pelvis is a lot shorter than the primate on the left, which supports us standing upright and also allows our legs to be attached at an angle, which is also more energy efficient. But like we said before, there's normally trade-offs for these sorts of things. So these changes in our pelvis have also made childbirth demands more difficult. So there has been a range of different changes that have happened to humans structurally over time, and we can observe these changes by looking at differences between us and the rest of our family and primates. So you can see that our skull shape has changed. Our brain is clearly bigger. Our ability for bipedalism has changed the length of our legs and our arms, and these are all characteristics that both point to us having common ancestors with apes, but also point to us being fully speciated away from our family. So hopefully this helps. If you have any questions, please bring them to class and I will see you there.